Hello, good morning, and welcome to this Dawn Busters Taste Challenge. Even though it's hardly dawn yet. I guess I should have called it an overnight challenge, but that's our lovely daylight savings time, pretend time that we have to deal with. Pretend time. That's America today. Pretend time, pretend people. But these are not pretend bourbons, but there is some pretension about it. And there's, not pretension, but pretendness, some fakeness. Well, I'll show you. We have Evan Williams. Kentucky's first distiller. Well, yeah. Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. This is the rare unlisted green label. If you look on the Evan Williams website, it does not reference this. It does not list it. And as far as you would be concerned, it doesn't exist, but it does. I'm holding it. It is sour mash whiskey, bourbon whiskey, and it's charcoal filtered. If you get the black label, it does not say sour mash or charcoal filtered. And this is aged 3 years. The black label has no age statement. Okay. The green label, 80 proof, whereas the black label, the standard Evan Williams, is 86 proof. Okay, so this is an oddity, like the even rarer Jack Daniel's Old Number 7 green label. Oh, no, not Old Number 7. Excuse me. It's called Jack Daniel's Number 7. So if you ever see Jack Daniel's Number 7 green label and you want to buy it, you better pick it up because it's rare to find. If you ever see this one, pick it up. Now, this is a set 375 milliliter bottle, and it was $4.99 at international market. So $9.98 for 750 milliliters. That's the deal. That's the deal. You know, when I go back there, I think they still have the same price. If they haven't raised the price, I'll buy two more, I think. Because I could use these in future taste challenges. But, you know, that might be so long from now. It may not be worth getting it. Because I wanted to get the Evan Williams black label again. I wanted to get the Evan Williams, 1793, the small batch. And so maybe I won't get it because I got too many bourbons as it is. I can't cover everything. All right, so yeah, maybe I just won't get it. Okay, here's the competitor, Daviess County, 96 proof. This is the 96 proof edition. Double mash bill sour mash Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. Double mash bill meaning it's got two different bourbon whiskeys blended together. Although they're not listing it as a blend of straight bourbons, they just call it straight bourbon whiskey. Well, you can do that because if you read the government regulations, it doesn't even have to come from the same distillery, Kentucky straight bourbon, as long as it's all from Kentucky. All right, so if you have Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, it could be 5 different whiskeys blended together from 5 different distilleries, theoretically. Now, if you find a bottle that says a blend of straight bourbon whiskeys, that's a little different. That could have coloring added and flavoring added. And it could be a blend of straight bourbon whiskeys from other states blended together. See, but that's a different that's a different class, and that's not commonly seen. No. This has a notch on the back for putting on the rack. Okay. History. Daviess County. I was checking trademark data, and it said the first time this bourbon whiskey was used in commerce, the trademark was 1936. Wooden cap, real cork. So you would have to imagine they wouldn't have been selling it before 1936 without a trademark. Because what happens there, there's the risk that somebody else will go and get the trademark on it, and then they can sell it. Happened to DC Comics with Captain Marvel. They own that character, Captain Marvel, Shazam. But really, Shazam was just what he would say when he would turn into Captain Marvel, Batson. Billy Baxter, right? Okay, or is it Billy Batson? Billy Batson. I have the comic books. But so what happened was DC was careless. National periodical publications, national publishing. They published all kind of magazines, but DC was their comic book line. But they were careless, and they didn't realize that the trademark was about to expire in 1968 or 69. Might have been, pretty sure it was 68. But Marvel Comics had Cadence Industries. That's the parent company, Cadence Industries. But Marvel Comics was aware that their trademark was going stale, and they were watching. And they said, look at these dummies. Are they going to let the trademark expire? And they were just waiting it out because they knew they hadn't used Captain Marvel since the 1950s. Sure enough, it expired. They went straight to the U.S. Trademark Office, said, we want a trademark on the character Captain Marvel, which was a different guy, a space guy, an alien, thing. And it came out on the market with Captain Marvel, a new comic book. Boy, DC about had a heart attack. Couldn't do anything about it. Didn't bother checking the trademark. So Marvel has owned the Captain Marvel character ever since. So when DC brought back Captain Marvel, they had to call it Shazam, the book. They called the book Shazam, but they still had Captain Marvel as the character. But now they don't even use that. Like when they made the movie, they called him Shazam. I think Marvel was pressing the issue, like, we'll sue you if you use Captain Marvel. Everyone knows that the real Captain Marvel is the DC character with the Shazam thing. We know that. That's the authentic Captain Marvel. But legally, Captain Marvel is this contrived character from Marvel, all right, that they really didn't even care about the character. They just came up with it so they could kind of like give DC a hard time, like, haha. Wasn't really that popular of a book. It got canceled. Then they brought it back as a woman superhero wearing like this big white blouse. And she was on in the Avengers, and she dressed like Helen Willis in the Jeopardy. I didn't understand, Captain Marvel in the 80s was like a superhero that dressed like Helen Willis on the Jefferson. But whatever, that's how things work. And in the same in liquor, you see. But I was just making that point. Nobody would ever let their liquor trademark expire unless they just didn't care about it anymore, and they literally didn't care about it. I guess that could happen. But then you'd figure nobody else would take it up, which is probably true. Some things are just not, most people figure ain't gonna sell. So yes, there has been a bourbon on the market since 1936 called Daviess County. I'm not saying it was an actual distillery. It was simply just a trademark for a brand of bourbon. Who knows who made it? Evan Williams. Now, you look at the labels, they're talking about since 1783. Or no, they don't say that. You ever notice it doesn't exactly say since 1783. It just says things like Kentucky's first distiller, Evan Williams. Bottled by Old Evan Williams Distillery in Bardstown, Kentucky. There's no such thing, by the way. Well, Yeah, it says on the back, 36 months old, age 3 years. Look, what does Evan Williams have to do with Heaven Hill? Nothing. That's the relationship between the man, Evan Williams, and the company, Heaven Hill. The owners, the Shapiro family, I guess they didn't want to call it Abraham Shapiro bourbon or whatever, that probably wouldn't attract a whole lot of people, but it might, who knows. But in 1955, they got the trademark for Evan Williams bourbon. I've checked. It was July 1955 was the first time the trademark Evan Williams was used in commerce. So what these companies do, they're clever, you see. They go and they find old names of people who are obscure, like he was obscure, really, and they get it trademarked and it make it look like it's been on the market since 1783, or like Jim Beam since 1795. Most people think that they've been making a whiskey called Jim Beam since 1795, when in reality it's only been since 1938. Now, Jack Daniels, yes, that was a real guy who started a real distillery called Jack Daniels Distillery. I think it actually had a different name at first, but that's. And then he died, and his family sold it to Old Forester. I mean, to the people that make Old Forester, Brown-Forman. There really was a guy named Francis Corbell who started Corbell Brandy and Champagne Company. It's not some contrived name for somebody that just some figure in history that nobody heard of. He really did start it. And then after he died, his family, same thing, didn't want it. So they sold it also to Brown-Forman. There was really a Paul Masson who died in 1940. He was from France and he started a wine company. And then they sold the brand to other people because of just not interested in it. Just because you start a company doesn't mean your family's going to want to run it. Larry Bell of Bell's Brewing Beer Company found that out. And people were like, "You're dirty. You sold the company. You're a sellout." He was like, "Well, I cannot make my family run it. They're not interested in it. I have children, but they're not interested in running a brewery. So, therefore, he sold it." Now, it's like these Chinese restaurants. You got the old Chinese people running the family-owned restaurant, and then they suddenly close down. You say, how did that restaurant close down? It was always packed with people, mostly to go, and you know how that works. But same thing. The people get old, the children don't want to run it, so they sell it. Happened to Egg Roll House in Metairie. I never went there, but it was like a takeout Chinese place, standalone place, wasn't in a strip mall. That had been open, I think, 40 years. 40 years. Always popular. They got some people live around there. They go there every week. But they said it's the same story. Couldn't get anybody to run it. The family, the children were like, "No, we don't even live in Louisiana. We don't want that place." The owners were elderly. They weren't elderly in 1983. Maybe they were 40. Now they're 80. They're like, "We got to get out of this all day long. So they sold it. I mean, they're just shutting down, and then the people that own the building probably going to sell the land to some development company and they're going to turn it into some modern place, not some old misfit looking building on a major boulevard in Metairie, Louisiana. Most of the old misfit looking places are gone out there. The old 1960s looking places, because they all been torn down and replaced by modern buildings like Bonefish Grill and Chick-fil-A. I remember out there in 1972, we were going, we used to go to music. My mom used to send me to music school, which I had no interest in really, and I used to act up and stuff. But you're a child, you bad, so you don't know. You don't know what you're doing really, except you're aggravating people, but you don't care because you're 4 years old. So on the way home, her friend says, "Let's stop at McDonald's." And my mother said, "No, let's not do that because you can only take out from there." That's when the McDonald's in Kenner, Louisiana, was only a takeout, or you could sit outside, but there was no inside dining. Can you imagine that long ago? I went to one McDonald's like that in my life. It's the original one in California, Downey, California. You can't eat inside because there is no inside except the kitchen. You can only eat outside, which I did. Okay. All right. Enough of that. Smells like corn. And smells like corn, but more. Like corn, but more. 96 proof versus 80. You would think it'd be an easy thing to figure out. And I do believe it will be. It'd be a challenge in name only. Now, yesterday I did it and I was able to tell Daviess County easily from Jim Beam. Although I admitted I'd rather drink Jim Beam. Now it sounds like, oh, you just don't understand craft bourbon. You're just very common. You're a very common person. I'm not very common. I'm just somewhat common. You know, I just prefer that, the 80 proof. Cheers on the taste. So on aroma, I think that's the Evan Williams, but I'm not sure. Now, what's better, Evan Williams or Jim Beam? They're kind of about the same. They're about the same price, $13. Both 80 proof, both aged 4 years. It's sort of like whatever one you want to buy. I know which one I'd want to buy, the one that's cheaper, which in my case is Evan Williams for $9.98. Although I did get the Jim Beam for $9.98 at Mathern's. I got both of them last year, both of them full size, you know, not, you know, 750 milliliters, full size for $9.98. Isn't that crazy? But it's the truth. All right, taste. Sugar water, corn, candy corn, some burn, some I'm not sure. Oak, of course. Oh, never mind. That's got to be the Daviess County because it's too strong. Woo! Give me the frisson, the willies, as we say. Oh, wow! Yikes! Yo, ouch! All right, that's the Daviess County. That is too strong to be an 80 proof. Ain't no way. That's not possible. Now, yeah, this is so mild, and it's so me. Like, you know, you say you're a wimp, you're a weakling, you're worthless and weak. What are you gonna do with your life? And my answer to you is, I'm gonna drink 80 proof because that's what I prefer. And I always tell people, you may as well drink what you like. You know, I have people ask me these questions a lot of times, like, what beer should I drink? I say, well, I think what they mean is what I recommend. And I say it's hard to recommend a beer if you just asking me. First of all, I don't know what beer you should drink. Maybe none. Maybe if you think you might be susceptible to alcohol abuse, or as we call it, problem drinking, wouldn't drink any of it. But if you could be moderate and handle it and everything, I couldn't say what beer to drink because you would have to give me more information. Like, what do you like? A guy asked me that yesterday. Now, this is true. He says, hey, Ron, some people call me Ron, but my nickname is Jay, but some people call me Ronald. Some people call me ugly names, but you just got to pray for them. Jesus said, love your enemies. Now, he said, is this a dark beer? He showed me a can of Foster's Lager, the blue can. I said, no, it's a yellow beer. Okay, good. He wanted to buy it. He said, I don't like that dark beer. I said, well, the green can is dark. Yeah, and I bought it last time, and I don't like that. He said, it was okay, but that's not my kind of thing. I said, the only reason it's dark is because they add caramel color into it. I said, if they didn't add that, it probably would be yellow like this one. He just was like, oh, okay. He didn't seem to have any interest in that. I have the feeling that a lot of dark beers aren't so dark on their own merits. They're adding caramel color. Before you come at me hard and talk about, oh, you're a propagandizer, you don't know what you're talking about. I do know what I'm talking about. I look at these European websites, right? And in Europe, they got to disclose if it has coloring. In the United States, they don't. Although Foster's does do that as a courtesy. But if you look in Europe, it always say caramel color E something. There's like an E number. It's like a European code number for caramel coloring added. So I'm like, well, then this beer ain't really that dark because it got the caramel color added. Exactly, it's not just like a lot of Scotch whiskeys. It looks dark, but it ain't. Now you say, oh, just like those bourbons you drink and they look dark, but they're not. No, 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 no. Straight bourbon cannot have coloring added. See that color? That's the actual color, unadulterated. No color added. Now, back to this one. And I'm unanimous in that. Oh, it's strong. It has body. Now it's got the wheated bourbon, which gives it the softness. And it's got the high rye, which gives it that minty rye spice. I just now finished last week doing rye whiskey taste challenges, so I still got that thought in my head, that mintiness. So it's a very nice product. Run you about $38. Might find it for $36 on a lucky day. I found it for $14.99 on a very lucky day. True story. I paid $14.99 for this, and it's a $38 bottle. I was happy. Got it at Mathern's, and I can't complain, and there's no looking back. I got a lot of it left. Oh, what a deal. Evan Williams, like I said, got it cheaper, a $13 bottle, but I got it for $4.99. Well, for the half. Two halves as a whole, so $9.98. $9.98 versus you said, well, that's $10 minus 2 pennies. I know $13.99 is 14 minus a penny. But yeah, that's the price. So I did get it both on discount. Now you might say everything you do is about discounts and deals, getting a deal. That's really not true. But it's the reality of the situation of when I'm shopping and I keep finding a deal every week. Well, yeah, common sense. I'm gonna take the deals, right? I find a whole handle of Jim Beam Black 8-year age, just like a 20-year-old bottle or older. I gotta pinpoint that later. And I find it for $32.99. Yeah, I'm gonna buy it. Yeah, you got that right. Yeah, I'm gonna buy it. Go look up the price for Jim Beam Black Extra, what they call it, extra bourbon, Jim Beam Extra, whatever. Go look up the price for a handle of that. I bet it's not $32.99. And it ain't 8 years old anymore. It's no age stated now, which means it's less than 8. Could vary. Mileage may vary depending on the batch. Personally, without me, every skill-wise guy out here will take a piece of your. No, but I prefer the milder one. I like the popcorn flavor or the corn kernel, more like corn kernels, the ones that don't pop but they crunchy, that kind of taste. Why do they charcoal filter this green label, but then the black label does not say charcoal filtered? Probably maybe that it's younger age that they feel like they need to filter it through charcoal, drip it through charcoal to give it some character or something, so it's not totally devoid of anything. That it's not coming across like a grain spirits on age, but it is age. At least we know this is age 3 years in new charred oak barrels. New. Those barrels had never been used before in the history of the world, and they were charred oak, and they used the Evan Williams. What do they do with the barrels after they age this in it? Well, they use it for other kind of whiskeys that aren't bourbon, or they might age brandy in it, because Heaven Hill and Sazerac both make a lot of brandy. And there's no rule against that. You can have used barrels, or they might send it to Canada to their Canadian operations if they have any. Sazerac Canada is one for Sazerac. And they'll age their Canadian whiskeys in used barrels. They're allowed to do that. Or they could send it to Ireland, or they'll sell it off to Scotch whiskey people. Oh, there's all kind of options. Might send it down there to tequila people, send it to the Caribbean for rum producers, or even to Kentucky, because now they're making rum in Kentucky, believe it or not. You say, ain't no good. Well, I don't know if Kentucky rum is good or bad. I've never had it. I've got some bottles, but I haven't opened them. Maybe it's wonderful. I don't know. But when you think of rum, you don't, the word Kentucky doesn't come to your mind right off, does it? Good morning, Ron Privet. Good morning to you, Maxwell. Peace to you in Russia, the Russian Federation. Got viewers from all over the world, y'all. Got viewers from Louisiana. Got viewers from Russia, Moscow. But it's the way it goes. Now, oh, I haven't even checked my labels. Not that that's necessary, but it is necessary to do a complete challenge. This is the Daviess County. Got it. As if I was going to get it wrong. Now, look, most of the other bourbons I got are low proof, 90 or below. Anything below 90 be lower proof. Low, I'll say low proof, 80, 86, you know. But it used to all be 86, man, back in the 80s. Everything. You look at any old advertisement for bourbon back in the 80s or 70s or 60s, they all say 86 proof or 86.6 proof. 86 or 86.6 proof. For anything cheap, expensive, moderate price, didn't matter. The cheapest old bourbon on the shelf back then was 86.6 proof. Then you start noticing in the 80s, late 80s, is dropping. Jack Daniels went from 90 to 86 proof. Didn't make any announcements about it, just quietly dropped its proof. Then in 2003, I got a 2003 poster hanging in my other room from Jack Daniels, and it says 86 proof. 2003. But I think that's the year they dropped it to 80. They quietly did that. No one noticed. Well, actually, some people noticed, but it didn't seem to matter because Jack Daniels has gotten more and more popular since then. So maybe the 90 proof didn't appeal to so many people. I don't know. I guess it did. But it did. It is more popular now than it was then. And I was reading about Marty Balin. He was the lead singer, the male lead singer for Jefferson Airplane. Ray Slick was the female lead singer. And he was saying, I guess he had kind of a drinking problem, you know. He says he kind of quit the band the first time, I think, because he was getting a little too much on the sauce. But he said, yeah, I can't really make music without being loaded on Jack Daniels. You got to take swigs of Jack Daniels. And I'm thinking, not a good idea, but that's what he did. And that was back in the 90 proof days. So you can imagine he was rather toasted making those albums. And he even sounds kind of like a little lit up, you know, when you hear that music. But look at the Rolling Stones 1972 tour photos. Every photo you see, they got a bottle of Jack Daniels prominently displayed somewhere around there. Or they're drinking it after the concert, 90 proof. But of course, it was sponsored by Jack Daniels, more or less. So that's product placement, what we call product placement. That was probably the deal. Well, we'll pay you the money, but you got to make sure Jack Daniels is in every big photo and on the stage and so forth. Oh, no problem. We drank it anyway. You look at Van Halen's 1978 tour when they first hit the market, so to speak. And they weren't popular then. No one ever knew who they were except in California. And every photo you see them with Schlitz malt liquor, the old blue bowl. Every photo, Schlitz malt liquor. Yeah, that's who sponsored the tour. The Who 1982 tour, Schlitz sponsored that, and Fleetwood Mac's 1982 Mirage tour, sponsored by Schlitz Light. I don't think that band ever drank Schlitz Light until Schlitz approached them to sponsor it. So they take photos, you know, where they're holding the cans, but I don't think they ever drank it. They didn't look like they were too thrilled with it, but probably thrilled with the financing. If you ever see Fleetwood Mac drinking it, it's always Heineken, you know, or higher, you know. Look like those guys. They didn't do discount brands of anything. Their beer was premium, above premium, Heineken. Their food was catered by very expensive catering companies in Los Angeles, and their whatever else they did was high quality. You know, A plus chill. They even had gourmet oxygen. um, they didn't even breathe regular air like you or I. They breathe oxygen, pure oxygen. But I was reading about that band. They did some strange stuff. You know, they would always have this super high expense account, meaning Warner Brothers was providing it all, but they were docking them off their, you know, they weren't doing it because they were doing it because they were charging them. And so that band would make tons of money, but then they may not had any money left over because they just blowing it all, you know. That's their problem. I don't care. If I'm gonna go record an album at 11 o'clock at night, I'd just soon eat a ham sandwich with some Swiss cheese and some kosher pickles or other kind of pickles, and drink some water. But they would have this huge meal from, I think it was called Delmonico in Los Angeles. They would bring it every night. They start eating at 11 o'clock, you know, at this huge table, and then they would start playing music. Then they'd finish up like 4 in the morning. And they tell them, Warner Brothers, bring us another Delmonico catered meal tomorrow. Okay, they don't care. They're gonna write it all down though. $1,400. You know, back then that's like $8,000 today. $10,000. All right, sure. Like Stevie Nicks, I gotta have the presidential suite at the hotel, and every suite has to be decorated with paper flowers and lace. You know, like the song "Lace and Paper Flowers." Just say, oh, fine. Hey, why is my check so low? Y'all got way more money in your check than me. Well, you want to have a presidential suite decorated with lace and paper flowers. We ain't staying at the Holiday Inn. Is your money, or your money that you could have had, but you spent it all. But anyway, but that's cool. But, you know, when you grow up like that, getting everything, you know, you're not used to like thinking about the money. Not exactly a rags to riches story, more like a riches to riches story. Her father was the president of Greyhound Bus Lines. So I don't think if your father's the president of Greyhound, you growing up, you know, eating at Burger King. Lindsey Buckingham's father owned a coffee company, coffee mill, you know, like a big coffee company. I don't know which one. I thought it might have been U-Band, but I can't prove it. But it was big. Okay, but anyway, my father worked at DuPont. I had a horse once in Coney Island. Got hit by a car. Yeah. All right. Anyway, thanks everybody for watching, and be back tomorrow with another straight bourbon. Yeah, it will be a straight bourbon taste challenge.